Good morning. Today we're testing the new CamPark T200 solar trail game camera. This is considered to be the top of the line now. I've been using CamPark trail cameras for, well, since 2007, to summer of 2017, so 4 years now. And the evolution of trail cams, not only from CamPark, but the trail cam market in general, has just been amazing, with increasing capabilities, increasing resolution, increasing features, and of course, the thing that I'm sold on now is the Bluetooth Wi-Fi version of trail cameras. That's pretty much exclusively all I'm using. The T86, the T100, and now the T200, which I'm testing out today, which is provided by CamPark. First thing you'll notice is it's a large camera. It's robust and heavy and well made, and it's kind of has a specific purpose because, you know, the advantage, of course, of the solar power is you can leave it outside for months and months at a time without having to worry about the batteries going dead. And this one is very interesting because the solar power is not, you know, permanently attached to the body of the camera, so you can remove the solar module and the power cable, and you've basically got a sturdy high resolution trail camera now. I think the capabilities of this one is pretty much identical to the T100 with regard to image resolution and video resolution. You know, the T100 and the T200 both go to 4K UHD, which is really exciting for me. And they're both 30 megapixel CMOS sensors, so I think that the sensor package with regard to imagery and video is pretty similar between this and the T100. This is a T86 that I've been using for more than a year now, and the T100 is about a similar size. I actually have the T100 deployed down by a stream right now, so I can't show that, but you can see that the T200's a little more robust, a little more solid camera, and, you know, just kind of designed for long-term use, which, you know, befits the solar power. So the solar module seems to be well made and solid heavy. It's got you can see the blue lights on there, which means it's fully charged. So you can either put it in or out of the camera and use this as batteries. The other thing that's I want to mention right off the bat is this camera is, like, now without the solar module, it's just like a regular trail camera. It has a DC power. And I also tested it out, but you can take like we have over here another solar power, and you can also, it'll also plug into that. So it's really versatile, and I like it a lot. I've been using it for about 2 weeks, so I'll kind of go through it all. But the nice thing about this is you don't have to charge this through USB, which can take a long time. It comes with its own dedicated 12-volt charger that's included with the package. And you've got your DC in here, and so if you just get it, or if you want to really charge it up fast before you deploy it, you can plug it into the wall socket and charge it, you know, thoroughly, and then put it out and let the sun charge it up, or you can just let it charge in the sun. But that's a nice option. And this is the 6-volt out, so it's 12-volt in, 6-volt out. You can't use this to directly power the camera because the voltages are different, so you can buy you know, 6-volt DC adapters on Amazon and other places where you can actually run an extension cord or electricity to the camera. But enough of that. Let's get into the details about the T200, which is actually pretty darn exciting. So this plugs on the top, and you run a cord from the output here to the DC input on the bottom, and you do that after you get it all set up. So, you know, that's the way it works. I'll show you an example later. This camera is held up to some fair amount of abuse with both rainfall and raccoons that I'll show you later when I go through. Of course, as always in my tests, I'm going to show you a lot of actual video and real world applications of this camera. All right, so let's dig into the camera, because if you're familiar with trail cameras now, a lot of them are, you know, similar in nature, similar in operation. The tricky parts for most people when they first get a camera like this if they haven't used one before, is getting the the Bluetooth Wi-Fi to work properly and things like that. So there's some differences in this camera than the traditional CamPark T100 T86. Besides from the overall robustness of this camera, it also has a you can put a cable lock through it here. It comes with the standard belt mounting unit for the trees. Comes with the standard wall mounting or tree mounting. This really is pretty standard now with most trail cameras, and this kind of mount gives you a whole lot of flexibility. You can screw it into a tree, screw it into the eave of a house. Sometimes I'll even just stake a stake in the ground and screw this to the stake, and it provides a real solid way to mount the camera. And of course it comes with the obligatory USB cable for transferring files from this to your computer. I really never use these. I mainly just take the SD card out and put it directly into the computer if I want to unload, because I usually collect an awful lot of data with an awful lot of files. Okay, anyway, let's get into it. Other than its overall outside robustness, the big difference in most CamParks is it has a battery compartment here, which is a way that you can easily change the batteries. Now I've pretty much gotten off of using batteries this year. I have not bought very many batteries this year, and it's because I'm pretty much trying to go to all solar. So you put your batteries in there, and the menu it has 38 IR lights, and again the side sensors, the main sensor, and the 30 megapixel photo and 4K camera unit. And we'll go through the menus here real quick. Of course, the first thing you want to do is get yourself a good SD card. I like to use 128 gigabyte Extreme Pro SanDisk. These are they're not that pricey. They run about $25 to $30 on Amazon. This one goes on upside down. That's probably the only real minor technicality that I have with it, is it's a little bit difficult to get it out of there once it's in like that, but it's not a big deal. And then you got your good SD card in there, and you turn it to the setup. If you've seen some of my other videos of CamPark cameras, then you know that the menus are pretty straightforward, but I'm going to run through this one real quick. Now I see I'm only running on the old semi-dead battery, so it's only showing 10%. Now if I were to plug the switch into the power unit and then plug it in here while I'm running through you can see it shot up to 100% there. And I'm pretty much off using batteries, quite honestly. I'll just leave some, you probably want to have real fresh batteries up there for backup, but I've got to the point now where with the solar, I don't worry too much about the batteries. And actually, they will run without the batteries in there, but I would recommend always keeping a good set of batteries in there. But when you're using solar, of course, you won't be buying batteries very often, and batteries can get pretty expensive. And this has 6 pages. You have your mode, and you press your OK button to select the mode, and the up and down arrow to select what mode you want, and then the OK button to execute it. Video, image sizes, they range the gamut from 30 megapixel all the way down, but I'm of the opinion that if you're going to be out here trying to get good quality video, and you can have a 128 gigabyte SD card, which is a big help, you might as well just go with the highest setting. Now there's some interpolation in there, but still 30 megapixel always gives you more options than the lower megapixels. You can set your number of photos that you want to take when it's triggered. In most cases you want to, I think this one is kind of different. It can take up to 10 photos, which is a real fast burst of photos. So depending on your particular needs, you might want to take a lot of photos when the trigger goes, but certainly you want to typically take more than one. 3 is a good one for me. Shutter speed, is 1 to 1/30th. That's pretty much where I always leave it. Of course, the slower your shutter speed, the more likely you're going to have blur in your pictures. So I tend to go for a higher shutter speed. Okay, we're on to resolution now, and the options are 4K P30, which is nice, 30 frames per second, all the way down to 360. I mean, but now, you know, with the capability of 128 gigabyte storage, you know, if you're trying to get, it's kind of a trade-off. If you're trying, in my case, I'm almost always trying to get quality video or photos. And the other thing about 4K that is like a little inside secret is if you're going to shoot in 4K versus 1080, it's you can take that and you can easily crop it and actually have the effect of enlarging the video by cropping down on the area of interest, in my particular case birds. So if you can always shoot in 4K P30 if you can, then you have a lot more options when it comes to editing the video, especially with regard to cropping the video. I'll show that an example of that later. Video length, you can set it up to 3 minutes, and that's a long time. I have it here 30 seconds just right now, but I was testing it at 1 minute and 2 minutes. But the video will run all the way up to 180 seconds. And that just kind of depends. It's a trade-off. Now, if you're running solar and you've got a full solar pack, it'll get you through every night. So you can you know, where the battery really gets eaten up is when you're running the IR lights at night. It doesn't use up anywhere near as much battery power in the daytime running long videos, but at night you run long videos, you're going to run your battery down. And it's built in that once the battery gets too low or it gets too hot, if you keep on taking continuous long videos, it's going to heat up. Then it'll start limiting the length of your videos automatically at night to save the battery. Record audio, I always leave that on. Now the audio on these is okay. It's not, you know, the audio is decent. It's a little bit low for my liking, but on the other side, I've cranked it up in post-processing, and you can turn the audio up really pretty high without distortion. So overall, I'd say I'm satisfied with the audio. It's not bad, and in post-processing, you can do a little bit with it. But I'm really nitpicky because I'm setting it down near birds and trying to get the sound of bird wings and water splashing and things like that. So in most cases, most people aren't going to be worried too much about sound. But if you're trying to pick up voices or things like that, you know, they're going to have to be in fairly close proximity to the unit to pick up a voice. The PIR interval is your trigger interval basically, and that's very important because that just sets the time between one photo set or in the next or one video in the next. So the minimum is 10 seconds, so that means that it takes a video or a photo, and then once the triggering stops, it waits 10 seconds and it can trigger again. So that's a 10-second in between that you're going to lose data. So I tend to set the trigger speed as low as possible to catch the action. PR sensitivity, you know, that's going to be a judgment call. It works really well. In my particular applications where I'm usually shooting close up, I have it down at low or medium. I kind of test it. But if you're trying to cover a large area, you know, the maximum range of the camera, then you probably want it up at high. And the IR LED, that has a lot to do with not only your exposure, but your battery use. Now, I use it almost exclusively on the economy mode because I'm taking close-up videos at night, and if you have the IR set too high, it'll overexpose and you know, just kind of blow out your subject and have it show white. That's one of the things I like about the CamPark, the more recent generation of CamParks, the T86, the T100, and this one, is that they do a pretty good job at nighttime of not blowing out your subject. Now you might, you know, depending on how you're doing it, you might have to adjust that by even covering some of these lights with tape if you want to get really close to a subject and not overexpose it. But if you're trying to get to your maximum coverage for security or just a large area for large mammals, then you probably want that or auto mode, which I find works fine. But for me, economy mode gives me just about the right exposure at night. Time lapse is fairly self-explanatory, and that relates to the monitoring period. You can set, you know, your time lapse, how often it takes a photo, and then what time period it takes. I had some fun with that before, like, you know, just for fun, videoing a rhododendron blooming over a period of weeks. You could do it for like building construction. It does open up some interesting possibilities now with the 4K video and the high resolution photo that you can get some pretty decent time lapses if you got something going on, like a building project, or just a robust camera like this. With the solar, you can leave it out there for months at a time and get the changing seasons or things like that. So you can experiment with the time lapse, but certainly the addition of the 128 gigabyte storage and the solar, which means that you won't run out of batteries, or even an external power supply if you're really serious, which aren't expensive, then you could really do some interesting things with time lapse. The sensor setup, I always leave those on. There's no real reason not to. Time and date setup is pretty much self-explanatory, and the time format, date stamp, I have that. I usually turn that off for taking quality videos. I have it on right now for testing, because it's just something you have to edit out. It's distracting from unless there's some particular reason that obviously if you're using it for security and things like that, you want the stamp on there. In my case, I don't want it on there normally. And you can set a password on it. Now, one thing that's very important is to always make sure that the Bluetooth is on, because the Bluetooth signal is what's going to turn your Wi-Fi on and allow you to use the external viewing of the videos and photos. Wi-Fi SID, it's set at CamPark 200. You can change it to whatever you like. And Wi-Fi password, that's just set automatically at 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Auto Wi-Fi off. 1 minute. Beep sound, I've turned it off because after a while it gets annoying. Language is straightforward. Format, this card I have in here has already been formatted, but when you start off for the first time, you want to be sure and format your card. And just some usual, you can set everything back to default and check your latest version and any firmware updates. So that's the menu. Okay, so the important thing here now is, this is, basically all the trail cameras with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth have a lot of similarities. Once you get it set up, of course, then you'd put it into the on mode. So we're going to go ahead and turn it on, and I'm going to go set it on the rail over here facing toward the mountains, and then we'll go through the Bluetooth Wi-Fi connection process. Now, the only other real very minor annoyance is you have to disconnect that to shut it. And then put it back on once you got it on the tree. But that's mainly just during part of your setup process. So we'll go set this over on the rail, and then we'll go through the Bluetooth Wi-Fi menu on the phone. First thing you got to realize is each camera typically has its own application that works with it. And so the T200 that we're using here today uses the hunting 4K app. The T100 uses the hunting camera 4K. And the T86 uses the hunting camera Pro. So there's a different application for each phone. And one thing is that the instruction manuals have really improved dramatically over the years for these trail cameras. T200 is no exception. There's a rather lengthy explanation of how the Bluetooth Wi-Fi works, and there's a Q code in here to download the app to your phone. But I think usually what happens is the latest QR code is going to be on the website for this camera, for the T200. That's where I got mine, and I got it through the Google Play Store. So let's run through it real quick here. The instructions are actually pretty good, but there's nothing beats an actual demonstration of how it works. Let's open the Hunting 4K app, and you can turn on the Bluetooth. Remember, you've had the Bluetooth selection on in the menu, so you turn on the Bluetooth on your phone. You allow that. And it's scanning for any cameras within range. And here you see, this is our camera here. The ends with a C4. And it'll take a number of seconds for it to connect. Now, what I suggest, you can rename your Bluetooth. So I'm going to rename it to, for simplicity, because sometimes I have I'm running like multiple cameras, so I'll get like so let's change it to the T200. Okay, and turn on the Wi-Fi. So the Bluetooth that we left on is waking up the Wi-Fi on the camera. And you know, the process takes a few seconds, so you have to be a little patient. Then you click on Wi-Fi setting and turn the Wi-Fi on. See it show up here, the T200. Connected, no internet. Now that's normal. It's connected by Wi-Fi, but you don't have internet access. Okay, so now the thing is, a lot of people get confused on, you just close the app and then open it again because you made the connection, and then you'll get a green check mark. And you'll actually see the view that's on your camera. Right now I have it pointing out to the mountains there. And this is a pretty dreary day, so you know, it's not, it's early in the morning, so it's not a spectacular picture, but you get the idea. And then over here you can go back and review what photos and videos on here. You can see I've been taking some of the photos while I was doing the test, and here's some of the photos from earlier and from last night. And you can also look at the videos that are on there. And you see the thumbnails. Now you could theoretically download these videos, but I don't recommend it, because especially if you're shooting 4K P30, these videos are huge depending on how long they are. A 2-minute video is like half a gigabyte. And you know, it's just not realistic that you're going to transfer videos from a card to your phone over a Wi-Fi connection. That would just take too long. Photographs, not a problem. Alright, so let's go back to, and so this is the live view that we're seeing right now. And from this live view you could take a video. Or take a photo. In this case I think it's probably taking 3 photos. Okay, then the other thing you can do here, of course, and this is what I like a lot about it, is you can go in and adjust the menu. You can change from photo to video, you can change your image size, sampling period, resolution, recording time, audio, the interval, basically all the important features here. You can turn the time lapse and time mode on, and pretty much anything really relevant that you need to change, you can change it like from your phone. And that's really what I like about these cameras, and that's why I don't use any cameras now anymore in my filming except for the Wi-Fi enabled cameras, because a lot of times I want to put a camera, it's a lot of work setting up a camera set in maybe in an inaccessible place or a hard to get at place, or like in the case of my stream cam, it's down in a ravine about 100 feet below me, and I don't want to walk down there and mess with the camera every time. So I can first off see what I've captured, and since the last time I checked it, see if there's anything interesting going on, see if the lens is dirty. If the lens is dirty, I got to go down there and wipe it. You know, just see if something has bumped it and the view is changed and needs to be adjusted, or just see if something's wrong with the camera, and also change the setting. Sometimes I'll change it. I'll run it like 4K P30 in the daytime when I know I'm going to get good color imagery, and then change it to a lower setting at night, something like that. But there's just all sorts of possibilities that this allows you to do when you can run your camera remotely, and that's why I'm pretty much sold on it. Not only sold on the Wi-Fi Bluetooth enabled trail cameras, but also sold on solar. I'm just tired of buying expensive batteries. I buy like a 48 pack of Amazon basic batteries for, I don't know, it's like 15 bucks or something like that, and I put them in there, and I don't worry about changing the batteries. I just depend on the solar. And in some cases I have a camera that's down in the dark woods, and it just doesn't get enough solar, so I've actually run an extension cord down there with a DC power adapter that you can also get on Amazon, and it makes these and with 128 gigabyte disc, makes it really a good setup. So that's pretty much an overview of the camera, which I like a lot, and the capabilities and how it works. So I'll just talk a little bit about some of the results I had with it. To get the most out of these new trail cameras, especially with regard to video, you really want to try and film in 4K UHD as much as possible. Because what a lot of people don't realize, you film in 4K UHD and you've got kind of a wide view, really clear, crisp wide view, and the focus is really close now, within about a foot or so of your subject. So what you can do is take that large video and crop it down on your main subject of interest, and you're going to get a much more intimate and detailed video, like you'll see in this cropped example of this larger video of the woodchuck drinking at the stream. So here is simply about a 1/4 crop of the previous video. You can see you get just an awesome close-up. Filming in 4K is even more important when you're focusing on really small subjects like this female cardinal taking a bath in the mountain stream. You know, the 4K video is huge in relation to the bird, and so if you shoot at 4K, especially with a 128 gigabyte card, which allows you to collect quite a few videos, then you can crop into that, and you can see here when I crop in on this cardinal, you get a much more amazing video quality, zoomed right. It's essentially the equivalent of zooming in by at least a power of 4. And you could zoom in a little more, but you want to get as much of the environment in there around the bird as you can. So this is just another really great example of the ability to shoot in 4K UHD and then crop it and still have your crop show up at high resolution. I had the T200 on a special mounting bracket way down low on the ground to catch the close-up action, but this raccoon took an interest in the camera and just kind of tried to tear it apart. He knocked it down and chewed away at the cord connecting the battery and pretty much left it flattened, but it survived and continued to work with flying colors. But just another example of when you see these pictures of the aftermath of him attacking the camera, you can see the setup that I use to get these really close, down low, intimate videos of animals going about their business. I love this shot of the mama possum with the little baby on her back. And to get these kind of neat shots, you really have to get down low and intimate.